me find the right screen. All right, if we're ready to go, let's call to order this meeting of the Montara Water and Sanitary District Board of Directors. It's May 20th, 2021. It is 7:33 p.m. Tracy, can we have a roll call, please?
Okay. Director Boyd?
Here.
Director Decker?
Here.
Director Harvey?
You're muted, Jim.
Now we have a meeting.
He's here.
Here.
Director Lohman?
Here.
Director Slater-Carter?
Somebody poke her.
We have good reason to believe that Catherine's here, but the image is frozen.
Frozen. Oh.
Well, let's, well, she has vanished. So let's show that Catherine is not here at the moment, but we expect her back any minute.
Okay.
Let's see, President's statement. Well, we're having beautiful weather, and every day it's something new and extreme. Today it's nice high winds, but we've got an ongoing water shortage happening. As folks here in Montara, Moss Beach know well, we're pretty well situated with respect to drought, but it's always a good idea to conserve, and our community has done an extraordinary job over the years of conserving, and it's time. So you'll be hearing more from us about specific recommendations that we're going to be asking the community to take into account in the days going forward. We know that we're surrounded by many communities that are going to be very hard hit by this, and it's good for us to be mindful and to adopt some practices that are beneficial now and in the long run. With that, do we have any oral comments for items other than those on the agenda?
I do.
I see Rick. I don't see any other hands. Rick, go ahead, please.
I have an astronomical announcement to make. For folks who love getting up in the wee hours of the morning, next Wednesday at 4:11 a.m., the biggest moon of the year is going to be in full lunar eclipse. You can get up earlier than that and watch partial eclipse, but it's full eclipse from 4:11 to 4:26 Wednesday morning. You could just stay up and keep watching it, but it's also called the blood red moon and some other names too, but it's the closest moon to Earth, so it's going to be really big and spectacular if you can manage to get up early in the morning and we don't have our standard Montara fog. So.
All right. Do we have any other comments, especially those that don't involve getting up at questionable hours in the morning? No? Okay. So
I just want to mention that I think we have Catherine on the phone. So just for the record, I believe that she's attending by phone now.
Catherine, can you unmute and confirm?
He is unmuted.
Catherine, are you able to unmute and confirm? Well, we'll note that we think she's here, and Clem, she may need help from the host to unmute if she's really in by phone.
No, I can only ask to unmute.
Okay.
I think there's some.
Well, okay, I'm unmuted and I'm signing in on computer so I can watch. I've got to be let in on that too.
Okay, so Catherine got here at 7 again for the second time. We have nothing on the agenda until new business item 1. Let's go to this review and possible action concerning Sewer Authority Midcoast fiscal year 2021-2022 general budget.
Can I make a public comment now that I'm unmuted?
Sure. Yeah. So this is on the oral comments section.
Yes. Clemens sent us an article today, and it is available on the Marin IJ. Independent Journal, there are districts in Marin that are considering putting on new connection moratoriums because of their disastrous lack of water. In 1991, one of the districts required that people reduce their water usage by 50%. And that was before all of these water conservation appliances. This time, several of them are talking about not allowing new connections, and they feel the courts will uphold them. I bring this up because one of the issues that I just read about, too, is there is a bill called Senate Bill 6, and it is to allow more housing in different zoning districts to make it very easy to subdivide and add another housing unit or to add in-law units. And I believe we need to get a hold of our legislators and say, hello, we're in the second year of a disastrous drought. Don't pass this. You're already mandating, in Marin, they're mandating 15,000 new housing units in the next 9 years. I don't know what the number is for San Mateo County, but I think it's something that everyone who lives on the coast needs to pay attention to with the Hetch-Hetchy requirements. It's not like we are going to be able to just end the drought by not watering outside 10% less. For those of us who live in Montara, we're already taking our shower water and have been for years to water our gardens. So, but there is a clear disconnect between the water providing community and our legislators who are doing this under the need for affordable housing. And we can have our housing will be very affordable when we run out of water.
Do you have the bill number again, Catherine? SB what?
Senate Bill 6, I believe.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Catherine, you said you had a couple of comments?
No, that was it.
Okay, great. Well, let's move on to the review and possible action concerning Sewer Authority Midcoast fiscal year 2021-2022 general budget.
Okay, thank you, Scott. So we reported at the last meeting, we actually had the collections budget up for approval at our last Montara Water and Sanitary District Board meeting here. And we mentioned at the time that the general budget failed board approval. The city of Half Moon Bay's Sewer Authority Midcoast site representatives asked or requested that the infrastructure portion be removed from the general SAM budget and voted subsequently against the general budget. In the meantime, or at the meeting already, SAM's legal counsel commented that the current Joint Powers Agency agreement requires the inclusion of the infrastructure portion in the general budget. And we now also received a written opinion from the SAM General Counsel that was issued to the SAM General Manager. We were copied in on that. So at the last SAM meeting on May 10th, the general budget now was approved in the form it was presented to the board on April 26th, and in the form it was presented weeks ago to the managers. So the overall general budget is suggested, next year's SAM general budget is suggested to decrease by $43,000. That's roughly 1% over the prior fiscal year. The assessment for the Montara Water and Sanitary District, specifically for the general budget, would be $1.532 million. And that's a decrease of $52,000 or roughly 3%. We have Kishan Prativadi here tonight with us as SAM General Manager to present the budget. We also attached it. Our staff recommendation will be to adopt the resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District consenting to approval by the Sewer Authority Midcoast side of its general budget for the fiscal year 21-22. With that, I'd like to ask Kishan to give us a brief presentation over the general budget. And I think you can share screen. Should be able to.
Thank you, Clemens. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you who had either been present at the April 26th SAM board meeting or watched the SAM board meeting, it is going to be a repeat. I apologize, but it's the same budget, so I didn't have much chance to change anything. Come on.
So we'll have a bit of new audience here, especially with people who watch just our meetings. So this will be great.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so this is the, as Clemens pointed out, he mentioned, it is the general budget, the operations, and the infrastructure included in this budget. And primarily all authorized positions are included in this budget. And we've considered that the merit step increases is one step for all the present employees. And for vacant positions, these are budgeted at mid-step. Now, just to give you an idea, there has been a decrease in health benefits by about $18,000 due to allocations to collections budget. What we've done is we've separated certain items like insurance and health and dedicated to collections and general budget. Earlier, it was roped into the general budget, but then we decided that direct cost to collections, we bring it into collections. So that was what was discussed in the last meeting. And made it clear, but just driving home the point that that's why there's a decrease in health benefits. Retirement contribution is also decreased by 70,000, mainly due to the underestimation of retirement costs. What happens is CalPERS typically notifies us at the end of the year of the unfunded liabilities. So we would need to present the budget in the month of March, and therefore CalPERS comes back with this statement only by the end of the year. So we underestimated, we had overestimated last time, so this is decreased by $70,000. We've also applied a 3% CPI to all non-personal costs, unless there's been any other changes. Just to give you an idea, it is a 7.4 million total budget. Wages and benefits contributes about 28%, which is about 2 million. Legal and professional, close to $1 million, about 19% of the budget. And other expenses, which is 38%, that talks of maintenance, chemicals, permits, supplies. And the infrastructure budget was about 33% of the general budget, was about 2.478. The infrastructure budget was approved and adopted by the SAM board in the month of February, and there have been no changes to it. So it's the same thing which is being carried forward to this general budget. Now, without the infrastructure, the operating expenses is about 4.92 million, where you have wages of 43%, other expenses 38%, and legal and professional services about 19%. Coming to the employees, we presently have 11 employees under this category. One of them is vacant, so that's why we have a total authorized as 12. So we have a general manager, finance officer, and administrative assistant contributing to the administrative services. Operations and maintenance, we have the supervisor of treatment and field operations, who shares his time with environmental compliance. Environment compliance is basically all lab-related stuff. We call it environmental compliance, compliance to NPDES permits, lab testing, and other related field. We have 2 maintenance mechanics, 3 operators, 2 lead operators, and 1 utility worker, which we have not filled up. It's still vacant. It was vacant last year, and presently it's vacant. We intend filling it up in the next 21-22 budget year, financial year. So amongst the 11 employees which are on roll right now, 5 employees are scheduled for step increase. 5 employees are currently on top step, and vacant positions, as I've indicated to you, is at mid step. And 1 employee, which is the general manager, is on a contract basis. So he's not on step, any step for that matter. So you have the wages and, so you have the wages and benefits. There's a decrease by about 6%. Legal and professional services, there's a decrease in about 29% from last year. All other expenses, which is utilities, insurance, there's a decrease by 1%. The total operating cost has actually decreased by 10%. On the contrary, infrastructure has increased by 25% because there's a lot of equipment which needs to be replaced, refurbished. So moving on to the next, giving you more details on the operating budget. Personal costs, there's been a net decrease due to retirement contribution and wages. Now, there's actually not so much of a decrease in wages. It's basically because we've accounted for 5% of certain staff, administrative staff, as well as the field operations, supervisor, field operations staff to collections. So we've decreased by that, and therefore this shows us a decrease in the operating budget. Legal services, there's been a net increase as a result of ongoing and potential legal cases. Engineering services has decreased by 26,000 because what we've done this time is we've ensured that all engineering costs are combined with the infrastructure budget. So the infrastructure budget will have engineering, project management, construction management, inspection, all costs added to the infrastructure budget. We have a small amount of engineering services for treatment, not related to capital. That's what is indicated in the general budget. Professional services has decreased due to less reliance on consultants. Last year, rather in this present financial year, we had a consultant and was working on ongoing improvements of the treatment plant, and now we don't need an outside consultant, and therefore these costs have come down. Insurance premiums have increased by 82,000. Building and maintenance services and equipment costs have decreased because they've been moved to the infrastructure budget. Repairs and maintenance have been reclassified because earlier the plant equipment repairs and maintenance was also added to professional services. So that's been reclassified, and therefore there's been an increase. And all other operating expenses have increased because of the, we've taken the CPI and adjustment to other operating expenses. Now, some of the major vendors in the legal and professional services are Calcon Systems. They take care of our equipment maintenance, most of our electrical requirement, as well as a SCADA requirement is done by Calcon. Then we have a major vendor, which is General Counsel, Breton & Tucker. Accounting services, we have Mason Associates for as and when needed. Although we have a finance officer in-house, he's just catching up with the regular stuff. Plus we had audit backlogs last year. So we had to deal with that. And therefore Mason Associates is helping us with the accounting services. Although it would taper down in the next financial year, it's still considered to be one of our major vendors. Alpha Analytical Labs testing is also considered as a major vendor because of the process upset that we faced in the month of October. We've been required to do intense testing as per the permit. When we had violations, we were forced to do, we were required to do sampling on a daily basis, while otherwise we would do just thrice a week. Plus, we've also started sampling at locations outside the plant to find out the source, and that's been happening since December. So those are added to the lab costs, and so Alpha Analytical Labs is one of our major vendors. Peninsula Pump and Equipment, they take care of the equipment maintenance. We haven't been able to replace all the pumps at the pump stations, nor at the treatment plants. So we do have some pumps which are pretty old, and it's difficult to find spare parts, but needs refurbishing. And Peninsula Pump and Equipment take care of it for us. We have Precision IT Consulting, who's our IT consulting firm. They take care of all our IT requirements remotely. And we had actually gone out for a bid 2 years back, and they were the apparent lowest bidders. Their contract ends in January 2022. We would go out for a bid again. And then you have Boucher Law Firm. They are an employment counsel, and they take care of all our employment counsel requirements, as well as some of our HR related stuff. CalPERS, as you know, our employees are all covered under CalPERS. We have Classic members and we have PEPRA members. So PEPRA members are members who've got into CalPERS after 2013. And the rates, the employer rate has slightly decreased for Classic members and PEPRA members, while for the employee rate, it has gone up slightly from 6.9 to 7%. And the unfunded liability is gone up by about 202,000. To get more details on unfunded liability, I welcome people to attend the Finance Committee special committee meeting, which is scheduled for next Thursday. It'll be up on our website, and we're going to have a separate session on unfunded liability. An expert from Mays Associates will be giving us that presentation. So coming to the assessments of each agency, as Clemens indicated, Montara Water District, Sanitary District has share is about 1.5 million, which is about 21.1% of the entire budget. And this assessment is primarily based on calendar year 2020 flow. This is what we've been doing always, and we continue to do it in this budget too. So to give you an idea, Half Moon Bay budget, there's a change, there's an increase by about 3%. GCSD increased by 6%, decreased by 6% compared to last year. Montara, there's a decrease of 3% compared to last year. In spite of the increase in infrastructure budget, the overall budget has decreased by 1%. And for Montara, the share has decreased by 3%. Coming to the flow, there's not been too much of a change in flow in Montara. You see the last year flow was about 21.69. It's decreased by about 21.1 to 21.1%, while Half Moon Bay shot up from 56.5 to 58.4. And GCSD also decreased slightly. So this is the division of budgets by fiscal year. You see the administration, we've decreased by 7%. Treatment, we've decreased it by 12%. Lab fees increased by 27%, as indicated to you about our plant upsets, which we've had to pay. Plus, we have some additional NPDES special species screening testing scheduled for the next financial year, because our permit is due for renewal in January 2022. So we need to start work by January 2023. We need to start all the lab related stuff by April 2022, which would fall in the next financial year. And therefore, there's been an increase in the lab fees. Infrastructure, which has gone up by 24%, is just 2.478. That's it. If you have any questions in particular, I can always answer.
I have some questions.
Yes, please.
On page number 1 of the budget, or of the staff report, it shows 7.263546 million that is proposed to be assessed to the member agencies total.
Yes.
However, on that page 1, you relate to 7.4 million. So where's the difference of $136,454? Where does that go? Is that infrastructure project expenses? And where do I find that in the budget?
Yeah. That would be, we have revenues coming in from other associated like NWSD fees and other things. So we take that into account and deduct that from the expenditure and then share the agency costs.
I see.
Does it make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. We have in the year 2020 to 2021 at MWSD used a CPI of 2%. Are you expecting 21, 22 to be higher than 2021 and consequently you took 3%?
Yes, we expected marginally higher, but we thought on average it would be 3%. That's what we've been taking for all other things, including our local 39 for the wage increases. So we went by the same criteria.
But you use the CPIs, right? The actual CPI.
Right. Yes.
From January to January.
Yes. Yeah.
Then I don't see any expenses, or you specifically excluded the expenses for the Half Moon Bay lawsuit from your budget. Where did they go?
Yeah, because our legal counsel does not have to get involved full time on the lawsuit. It's just for discovery and other things. So we've added some extras in the legal fees in the professional legal. We haven't added a separate item for the lawsuit.
And you feel confident with only a $25,000 increase?
Yes. At this moment, we are confident about it, but I presume so, yes.
And then in terms of the operating expense or the reserve, the operating reserve, you specifically mentioned that for the emergency reserve, you want to have 1.25 million. What you're not saying is how much you need for the operating reserve. Last year, it was 1.376 million. How much was it this year? And then last year, in order to get the 1.376 million, you had a shortfall of $846,000. What is the situation today in terms of the operating reserve and in terms of the emergency reserve? I think the emergency reserve has been set aside, but how much money do you have at the LIAF and how much money do you have in the bank? And how is it different?
Yeah, I don't have the number. Yep, I don't have the numbers immediately, but I think we have a little more than 1.4, 1.5 million. I don't have it right now.
So is that better than last year?
It is definitely better than last time. Yes, it is definitely better. Yep.
Then if I look at the treatment division, I find that there is a worker missing, a collection maintenance worker, 3.0 FTE, whatever that means. Does that mean that you are doing with one person less in the treatment division?
No, if you see the slide which is on the screen, that indicates a 3 FTE, full-time employee. FTE is a full-time employee. We have 3 operators and we have 2 lead operators. I failed to understand your question.
I just compared your budget this year with the budget from last year. And in the budget from last year, there was 1 additional worker under the treatment division.
Nope, there's been no decrease, there's been no increase. It's just that the utility worker vacant position was present last year also and it's being present next year too. We have not made any change.
You should look at your last year graph, and your last year graph shows 1 person more.
Okay.
Was there some allocations of persons moved from the general budget to the collections budget or something like that?
Maybe.
No, not that I remember. It's the same thing we have in the collections. We have 1 mechanic getting into collections, and no, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm not. I could get back to you at a later stage, but right now, I don't think there is any change. I'm positive there's been no new employees added, nor any employees left.
Oh, because as I said, you have made a tree showing the various persons in each division. And from the comparison of last year's budget with this year's budget, there's a difference of 1. But it's really irrelevant. If you tell me that you have only 1, then you have only 1.
It could be in the overall in the administrative services. We had one accounts officer, supervisor of, I failed to remember what was the designation, but one person was there, and we had to eliminate that position, and therefore there's a decrease last year. That was in the administrative services.
No, I'm talking specifically about what you mentioned under treatment division. Anyhow, it only means that your 21-22 budget is correct and your 20-21 budget was not.
2021, okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Catherine.
My question is, prices are going up extraordinarily right now. And I believe they're going up in many different fields, but I have noticed it in particular at the hardware store. And so my question is, do we have a priority list and a way to economize for the projects that we're going to, and the things that we're going to be doing, or how do you anticipate handling the increasing expenses over the next year?
Yeah, the earlier we get to do the projects, we've seen that we'll be able to save a lot of money. So we wouldn't like to delay the capital improvement projects, which has been already approved, until the last minute. We'll try and get it done at the earliest possible, possibly in the first half of the year, rather than pushing it to the second half of the year. And also what we've done is, which we continue to do, of course, chemicals, we go into a consortium wherein we are able to reduce the prices and get a good deal, because they go out for bid collectively, and we get a good price on that. Plus items like filters and other things which do not have shelf life, which we could stock them, well in advance, maybe a year or maybe for 2 years, so that we don't end up paying for the extra costs. We're also thinking of certain items like an annual maintenance contract. For example, we have the new rose blowers. The blowers typically give a factory maintenance contract for the first year. They give X amount, but if we give them a contract for 2 years continuously, then it decreases to 0.9x. And thereafter for 3 years becomes 0.8x. So you can think on those terms, because these are factory trained, factory, service mechanics who come in. And the other thing, last thing which I have in mind, I don't know how it would affect, but we've always been thinking of construction projects, which are long duration construction projects. We've been having this clause of penalty. I was wondering, maybe we should have a clause which will have an incentive for early completion of the job. So that way, the district could also save money, make prices. The bid price will be much lower, and then we can always give them the incentive and get it done much earlier.
Those all sound like good ideas. The problem I know we have had with the most recent project that we're just finishing up is it went up in cost hundreds of thousands of dollars because one of the member agencies decided they didn't like it. Is there a way that we can get a sign-on from the member agencies for this kind of long-term planning? I would hate for Sam's reputation to get shredded because we made commitments for 2 and 3 year contracts, and then a member agency decided it did not like that. Is there a way we could perhaps have a 2-year budget or even a tentative 3-year budget that would have at least the long-term contracts in it, so those are predictable?
Yes, that's a good idea to have a multi-year budget. So yes, we could probably discuss it with the managers at our managers meeting and see how the other agencies are amenable to that, and we can bring it back to the SAM board at a much later date.
My request would be that when you talk to the managers, you ask to have it as an agenda item on their agendas so that you can get a commitment from the board as well. One of the problems appears to be that managers get overridden from the managers' meetings.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other comments, questions? Not seeing any. The recommendation of staff is to adopt the resolution. Can I have a motion?
I'll make so moved. Oh, thank you, Peter. I'll second your motion.
Okay, so my understanding is that Peter has moved and Catherine has seconded that we adopt resolution next in order. Resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District consenting to approval by a sewer authority mid-Cosign of its general budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Boyd?
Aye.
Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Harvey?
Aye.
Director Loman?
Yes.
Director Slater Carter?
Yes.
Okay, the resolution passes 5-0. And Keishan, thank you so much for coming and presenting and fielding the questions. We really appreciate your work.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Keishan.
Thank you, Keishan.
Thank you. Thank you.
So with that, next on the agenda, I believe, is review of the drought contingency plan.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. And you already introduced a little bit this item in your president's statement. We are all aware of California's dire situation when it comes to water. This year in particular, I'm actually really strongly believing that it is very underestimated how severe this current drought is, just because of the way a drought is defined in California as 2 years of below precipitation. It doesn't really take into account what happened before a year of average rainfall. So we had 2 water years back, 1 year that reached almost normal levels, was slightly below average, at least in the Bay Area. In other areas, it was slightly above average. However, before that, we had a very long period of below average rainfalls, and the total amounts that we're seeing right now. So we currently have 13 inches. We should be getting close to 30 inches. So we're missing roughly 50% of the rain. So the numbers are unprecedented, at least from what I've seen and what I've seen also historically since we recorded. So the situation is rather dire. Montara's water system, Montara and Moss Beach's water system, was in a very bad state just 20 years ago, before this agency took over the water system. And many of you have seen the local water system being impacted by essentially having not enough water. We are an agency that's the only agency on the peninsula that depends 100% on local sources. And with that, we did a lot of work to get out of this situation. As soon as the district took over the water system, we spent a lot of energy and funds developing new sources, upgrading existing sources, and that means production-wise as well as water quality-wise. So we have a lot more flexibility to operate the system. And with that, we also had to set aside quite a bit of our capacity for drought contingency when we asked for the repeal of the moratorium via the Coastal Commission. So we're in good shape. We know that we will survive this year. However, nobody knows how long this drought is going to continue, how the situation in California continues. We see already our neighbors that receive water from Hetch Hetchy, Coastside County Water District, and North Coast County Water District are asking for voluntary 10% reduction. Marin County, we just heard, is considering, some agencies in Marin County are considering, and it is larger ones, considering implementing moratoriums on new connections during the drought. So I think we're going to see a lot of messaging. From our perspective, I believe it's important that we stay consistent with the messages that are sent throughout the region. So we don't have a need for our customers to voluntarily save 10%. However, we have a lot of experience with lack of water. And so we look at so we thought it would be a good idea to look at our drought contingency plan and use that also potentially in a newsletter article to point out that we are actually always asking to conserve, and we're always in stage 1 of our drought contingency plan. And with that, we already ask our customers to consider how water is used. And it's very simple things like, landscape, not during the hot times in the day, don't let water run off your property, fix leaking pipes, don't go to the car wash, don't wash your car, out in the driveway, or don't wash the street, just don't hose it down. These are, I think, very obvious things. Or, for example, refrain from using water during a power outage. I think that's also a very important one. So with that, we thought it's a good idea to look at the drought contingency plan, bring it up to the board, and maybe work on a newsletter article that highlights our situation and just asks customers to start conserving. We know it can only go in one direction. I think there's the 10% voluntary reductions that we see that the Hetch Hetchy agencies are asked to adopt right now are really just a step towards mandatory water use reductions. So yeah, I think that is essentially what we wanted to bring to the board. So we're going to put this in a newsletter article and are starting to ask folks to conserve. And I'm certain this is not going to be the last time this year that we talk about the water supply situation in California. With that, thank you, and back to the board.
All right. Do we have any comments or questions? I see Greg's hand.
I have some.
Greg. Okay, I'll get to you, Catherine. Greg, Catherine. I'm going to come forward.
I better get going before Catherine. I'm pleased to see Montara Water and Sanitary District is once again on top of an issue. I had an interview with Nicole Sankula, who's the president of Boss Club, about 10 days ago. And she shared with me, and I can pass it on if you're interested, the guidelines they've given their member agencies to use in calculating their cutbacks. SFPUC, because of the Bay Delta plan, forecast a 40% generic cutback because of the Bay Delta plan expected for 2023. Each member agency is going to have to calculate its own numbers because they have different water rights and different situations where they may have supplemental sources, like Half Moon Bay has Denniston Creek, but it's 85% reduced in a drought. So whether that helps or not, we'll be seeing. I think the logical question that some of us in the community are going to ask is, what does this mean for large pending developments who want to join the Montara water system? And I'll point out to you that in your 2017 plan, you listed the Aqua Vista well at 100 gallons per minute flow, but the hydrologist reports documented 76 to 80 gallons in two separate reports. So I think you're a bit overstated there, but I don't know what else has changed. So as you consider advising the community, I would also ask you to look at whether or not you really think you have drought reserves that make sense. As I recall from the last drought, when you got to the end of 2016, you were already curtailing the use of Alta Vista. And I know, Clemens, you use a statutory mechanism of taking out one of your sources to represent the drought. But I would ask you to maybe think a little more detailed way what you're really likely going to experience as you're forced to conserve the water in the main aquifer. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in future meetings about what the implications are. I'm not suggesting a connection moratorium, but if we're going to get lumps where they're adding 71 units and hundreds of people, it might be time to think about this. Thanks.
All right, let's go to Catherine then.
I think as part of our drought planning, we need to be looking at the loss of gross receipts. Because when people stop using 10% of their water, or their outside water, which is probably about 5%, or I don't know, 3% or something, we're going to see our receipts go down. We need, and then people are going to be upset. I know I was when I had been so carefully conserving water and my water rates went up. So as part of this article, we need to explain fixed costs and maybe do a whole article on the problems of trying to balance your budget, most of which is fixed costs on the variable consumption. In this case, it would be the only item we sell. And it also, this is also going to have an effect on STEM as well. Because people are going to be conserving, be limiting their household water use as well. So I think that to both explain what's going on with the rates and why our rates are structured the way they are, and also to educate people that, about what's going to be happening to our budget and the fact that with the costs we have to cover.
It's a good point.
Okay, let's go to Rick.
On a couple of these things that people have already mentioned, you mentioned our newsletter going out. I would propose that we mentioned that state bill or Senate bill number 6, which is pounding more houses into everybody's areas, and write your congressman about that, because you know, what good does reducing, you know, our use by 10% if they add 10% more people? Everybody is down just at a lower level. As Greg said, like the little Moss Beach project, with, you know, could be a couple hundred people coming in. I think I saw today that a formal lawsuit has been filed against the California Coastal Commission for approving that with an inadequate EIR.
Wait, for approving what again, did you say?
I'm not sure what it's officially called, the Moss Beach Project, I call it.
Oh, the one, yeah.
So I believe the ECO group has filed a formal suit against the Coastal Commission for inadequate approval, with an inadequate EIR. But the trend, as they said earlier, is just more people, more people, more people. And you got X amount of water, that means everybody gets less and less. And every time you add somebody, you get less water. And that can't just keep going, forever. So I would encourage everybody to write their congressman on that one. And I think we should put it in the newsletter to encourage more people to write their congressman and say, hey, folks, this is reality out there. You can't just keep ignoring what's happening out here and adding more people all the time. So that's it.
Do we have any other comments or questions?
That's a great idea, Rick. I'd be happy to promote that.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you, Clemens and everyone. Let's go to the next item. I believe that is review and possible action regarding PFAS regulations, and that is perfluoroalkyl substances and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Clemens, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. That's right, because we're talking not only about PFAS, but we're actually also talking about PFOS. So before I ask Tanya to summarize what the current status of the regulations is, I wanted to thank Director Decker for following along these changes that are actually happening to the regulations in regarding to these substances. And I want to just, send ahead that this is nothing new. This has been well known since a very long time, that these substances are harmful. And we're really talking about Teflon, non-stick pans. We're talking about firefighting foam. Those are the substances where PFAS and PFOS are used. And it is just the way that these substances are regulated that now folks are, looking more and more at them. So I think this is a very good thing. Hopefully this will all help improve water quality throughout the United States. So Tanya, with that, maybe you can give us a brief update on what's the current status on these regulations.
Thank you, Clemens. And thank you, President Boyd, for pronouncing the word so I don't have to. The general manager asked me to give a regulatory update. That's what this item is about. There's no action required. As you know, the water system is regulated by the California Safe Drinking Water Act. And under the act, the state implements regulations that are required to monitor for contaminants and are required notification of the public of the quality of the water delivered to the customers, to the public. And that's how we have the consumer confidence report every year, and all other monitoring that the district conducts. So if there is, as general manager mentioned, these compounds have been known and prevalent for many years. And now there's a keen awareness of their potential impact to the drinking water supplies. And the state is looking very closely at this. Of course, the initiation of the regulation came from EPA, and the state followed suit by authorizing the State Water Board in the California AB 756 was promulgated in 2019. To order the public systems to monitor for those substances, PFAS and PFOS. If the substances are detected, the systems are required to report, of course, to the state and to the public. And there's several levels established for the notification. It's not yet established as a maximum contaminant level, and the regulatory controls are still evolving. In September of 2020, the Division of Drinking Water has set another round of orders to public systems throughout California requiring monitoring under this AB 756. Then in February of this year, they actually issued a general order asking water systems that were deemed at risk for potential PFAS contamination or already known to have the detections or located close to those who have confirmed PFAS detections to monitor and report. So that's just an overview of the regulations. Here's the good news. The good news is none of MWSD water sources were listed to sample for PFAS. We think the state will expand the list of sources to be sampled progressively over the number of years. However, the state currently has none sources, not at all sources listed in the county, period. And I have attached the fact sheets summarizing the current status, and we also showing the systems that are being asked to monitor. Interestingly enough, there's some water systems we're working on one of them that have known contamination, and they're actively pursuing treatment, because otherwise the other option is for them to take the well and its groundwater out of service. So we found it interesting that the airport, the only location the staff thought would be at risk was the Half Moon Bay Airport. However, there's no known use of these compounds at this airport, and it's not listed as an airport, as a location of concern. Most MWSD sources are protected from that kind of contamination. However, we don't know if the state will probably ask us to eventually sample and monitor, and we will when we're asked to. But at least at this point, we have no. It's an emerging contaminant, and we have no concerns at this point that there's any exposure by to MWSD sources. That's kind of the gist of the situation today, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Tanya, can you tell us? You said that there are a couple of districts that are being looked at and may be in danger of not using their groundwater. Can you tell us where those are, or give us a rough idea where that's happening, please?
I think so. It's a private water company in the Silicon Valley.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Santa Clara County.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have other comments or questions?
Yeah, for those of you who want to read up on the subject, and subscribe to the consumer reports. In their May issue, there is an article about PFAS.
There was also a good discussion of PFAS at the SAM hearing, at the SAM board, at the end of the meeting under attorney's report that Jeremy gave. And Clemens, maybe you can get a link to that to put on our website for folks. It was a short 10 or 15-minute presentation, but Jeremy is working on this down in SoCal.
So that would be in the written staff report or in the video presentation?
It was in the video presentation, and it was under attorney's report.
Okay, and that's, so you can go to samcleanswater.org and find the video there. Which meeting was that? That was the most recent one?
It was one of the more recent ones, but it was sometime since January, but I don't remember the date.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other?
I did a post on this. The chat's not open, so I can't drop it into the chat. But if you go to my website and you put in PFAS, you will get Jeremy's presentation. And
thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
It was a great
Michelle,
presentation.
could you remind us the website address?
Cosidebuzz.com and put in PFAS, and you will come up with the post.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. I want to play with the agenda a little bit and go backwards to new business item 1. I understand Keishan has done a little research while we've been meeting. Keishan?
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'll try my best to clarify Director Decker's question. Yes, for the treatment, the full-time employee, 21-22, what we are giving now is 8.75. 2021 was 8.75. 19-20 was 9.75. It was one more extra. And that was because the engineering construction manager was present. And we defunded that position, and therefore we had a decrease in the subsequent year.
Thank you.
So he was a part of the treatment, engineering and construction contracts manager.
Okay.
Clarify question, Director Decker?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific turnaround, Keishan. That's well done. So with that, let's go to reports, and let's start with the Sewer Authority Midcoast side report.
Well, I guess the good news has already been mentioned several times, is that the delayed budget was passed. So you're looking at it tonight, and we've approved it tonight. So that was the big news. What else happened that was important? Keishan, remember, or Catherine, were there other, that was the big item we were worried about. I'd have to go.
Yeah, that was our biggest item. To be honest, my poor old computer is having trouble, so I can't look up the agenda because I'm using my phone.
I'm looking at it real quick, so.
I'd like to comment. Keishan, it looks like you have a comment.
Yeah, I can possibly give information to Director Lohman. We talked about the first flush report by RCD.
Oh, that's right.
And the multi-jurisdictional local HMP hazard mitigation plan by the County of San Mateo Office of Emergency Services. We had a presentation, and I believe both of them have been put on the SAM website.
Mm-hmm.
You would like to add something more to that, Director Lohman? You may.
No, I just think they were interesting. The RCD wasn't able to present the agenda item before when they had the comments by the California Water Resource Group and stuff like that. So they did their own presentation. We're looking at some items in that because as they had the big thing from RCD was, as usual, the harbor is super polluted. So we kind of have known that, but we have some solutions we're going to try to offer in the next couple months to maybe help rectify that. But the RCD does their presentation pretty much every year at the what they call first rain now instead of first flush. So they do all the major chemicals and what's good and what's bad up and down the coast. So it's always an interesting, presentation. So they had that in the budget, and they keep talking, and it's going to be a constant discussion, this whole thing about the multi-jurisdictional local hazard plans and whether we can start actually discussing potential projects for that, because billions of dollars are going to be available. And the biggies usually get them. So if we can get some good projects going, this will help, for, forest fires, sea level rise, pretty much all the kinds of hazards we have around here. So that was pretty much all we did at the meeting.
I'd like to add in the budget, I really appreciate, Keisha, that you got a formal opinion from the Sanitary about the question about allocation. It's really good to have a solid basis for confirming something that without having hard data like that, it can become a contentious issue. But I really appreciate that you went to the source and you got the right person to extract that information and present it that way. I think that was very helpful. And I appreciate the tenacity and patience that everyone has in going through these issues. It's been a difficult time, but both our representatives and our staff at SAM, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, let's go on to the Midcoast Community Council meeting. Greg, would you like to share?
Yeah, thank you. We're working on trying to get Caltrans to remove and revegetate eucalyptus on evacuation routes and also on the highway bypass property, which is in your watershed. We at the MCC are having trouble finding contacts at Caltrans to work with. I'm told from fire marshals I've talked to, this is not a new problem. But if any of you have any suggestions on contact information for people at Caltrans, we could approach to get them to participate in the local hazard mitigation plan, so we'll qualify for FEMA funds, and in more specific immediate actions, because we believe they will have some liability if things go wrong, yet there doesn't seem to be any motion. So if you know somebody who knows somebody at Caltrans, please get in touch with me.
And what's your upcoming agenda item?
We have a repeated list of wildfire and local hazard mitigation plan tasks that we published at the last meeting and I think the meeting before. So there'll be updates every meeting. Does that answer your question?
No, I was asking you about your upcoming agenda item next week.
I'm going to talk about that now. The Sam Half-Moon Bay lawsuit will be covered at the next MCC meeting. We've consulted with County Council. We're allowed to cover it. Obviously, we have to follow some guidelines. I was hoping to borrow slides from Montara's presentation just so I don't have to recreate them. But I need them in PowerPoint or open document format, and I don't know. Clemens doesn't seem to have it, and I don't see, what's her name? I don't see the lady, Allison, here. But if somebody has a copy I can use without retyping them, I'd appreciate it. And then finally, there is a set of updates we're working on regarding a host of wildfire concerns. We're going to have another special meeting. Well, I don't want to call it a special meeting. We're going to take the first meeting in June to discuss, follow up on a lot of wildfire items. one of the things that seems striking to me is that we don't have a specific governance for our area. And there was a plan for wildfire produced for the entire county some years back. And if you read the section on North Midcoast, it's basically blank. So one of the things we might need to do in order to qualify for more funding is to establish a governance body that will then be receiving those funds. And so that and some other consulting work will be discussed. There'll be an update meeting this Wednesday. And then going forward, you'll see more. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
In regards to wildfire, I got an email from Mr. Kevin Mullen, District 22, asking us to participate in the virtual wildfire preparedness event on Wednesday, May the 26th at 5 p.m. Is it any use for us to participate in that discussion?
I can't tell you. Are you going to go?
I'm thinking about it, yes, because I put a question in regards to the right-of-way Caltrans property.
Okay, I'll think about it also, but we also attend the Fire Safe Council and a whole bunch of other meetings. And what I'm looking for is specific funding and action items on the specific wildfire issues and risks we've identified.
So let me say who is participating. Chief Jonathan Cox, Deputy Chief of CAL FIRE, San Mateo Division, Dina Gunning, Community Risk and Resiliency Specialist with Central County Fire, and Dan Belleville, Director of San Mateo County Office of Emergency Services.
So just last week, I was in a meeting with Belleville. We've had Cox speak a bunch of times. I will be surprised if they have something new to say, but I'll look at the agenda, and I would welcome an update from you, Peter, just to make sure that the base is covered. That would be helpful.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Rick, anything on the CSDA?
Well, apparently there are all kinds of technical communication glitches. I didn't even receive a meeting notice, and several other people didn't either. There was a meeting, and I've heard that nothing too exciting happened, but because we have new officers and a whole bunch of other stuff, and maybe the email lists were a little destroyed or didn't get transferred correctly. So don't have anything super exciting to say about that because there weren't any major resolutions that came out of that. So.
Okay, do you have anything on the Local Agency Formation Commission?
Certainly do on that. A couple interesting things. Well, there are a whole bunch of standard things. They passed their annual budget and their agreement with San Mateo County because they share offices and staff. So an awful lot of it was just signing off all the budgets again for this next year. So that went along. The big item was, as I mentioned before, the East Palo Alto Sanitary District issue. They have gone out. The basic issue was, which is very interesting from what I mentioned before, the city and a major developer or developers have proposed a dozen major projects in the area. Then they took these to the district and says, what would this take? The district analyzed it and gave them some number, just something on the order. Well, that's $7 million of expansion because our pipes can't handle it. So give us a check and we'll start building. They ended up essentially suing or because they said, oh, well, why don't your current customers just pick up that cost? Another attack they did was, well, you should have been listening to our meetings and pre-built all the required infrastructure. I talked to them offline and said, well, we had an incident like that here on the coast with CCWD. where CCWD wanted to replace a pipeline with one that was 2.5 times as large. This went to the Coastal Commission, and special districts can't just put in more infrastructure because they feel like it. It's called growth inducement. So a whole bunch of the LAFCO commissioners this time started adding some more things, like be sure and include California law in this and special district law in the study and a bunch of other things, because the district literally, as I understand it, is constrained and can't do that because that's a gift of public funds. I know of no other incident in any of the other districts in the county where the district has picked up the costs for the developers. So this is going to be an interesting case. The developers are paying for the municipal service review. This hasn't been done in many decades. It was done once in the past, but generally, LAFCO lays out a plan for the year and does 3 or 4 year, and LAFCO picks up the cost either with their own people or with consultants. So it's always interesting to me that a agency hired by the developer will be doing the MSR, which seeks to dissolve the special district completely.
I think, Rick, has there been a discussion at CSDA about all of the special districts contesting that? That just so undoes the intent of the reviews.
I was going to do it at this meeting. I've done it twice before. So I'm going to call the president to see if it's going to take a long time to do the study. So it's, they're going to, I think it'd be interesting if CSDA is interested in actually giving a letter or calling the consultants and say, by the way, you should talk to us about this too. It's kind of iffy because the developer is actually paying the money for the study. So I don't know, they didn't say exactly who they'll be talking to or who they're allowed to be talking to and stuff like that. But it is an interesting and what I call semi-scary precedent being set. So,
it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, seems that way, especially if they're being directed what to do. So some other things that have popped up were more on the, again, legal, not legal issues, but Congress issues here. A couple more bills that I've mentioned before. One's SB 403. I mentioned this before because it's moving along and will probably pass. It's what I call the forced merger of water districts bill. The intent was for a lot of places in LA and the Central Valley where they have some horrendous districts, some of which are like someone's got a well and ran lines out to 10 families from their well, and the water's horrible. There was another incident in LA where the California legislature finally passed a law and just took the district away because they were doing everything illegal and wrong. It will always be something to watch. I don't think it will be applied to our area, but you never know about the stupid California government sometimes. So it's mainly aimed at districts which are performing so badly they can't even provide essentially potable water to their clients. So they're saying that the state can come in and fix the problem. So that was interesting. And another one I mentioned earlier is moving along. And this is what I call the stormwater bill. It's not allowing sanitary agencies like us or SAM to work with counties or stormwater agencies to help each other out. This is, I don't believe that we're interested in picking up or working with the county on stormwater control at this point, but it would make that more easy because, as we said, to the water, all the pollution in the harbor and on the beaches, it's not from the sanitary districts, it's from runoff. And big stormwater, the first flush, and they look how horrible it is, but it has nothing to do with the sanitary. So it sounds like something reasonable some agencies may want to pick up and work with, but it would allow basically agencies to work with the county in this case, who does our stormwater, and we could look for stormwater control and somehow send it down to SAM too. But I think there's so many issues right now with SAM and lawsuits and things like that. This won't be coming up in any time in the near future. So that's basically the LAFCO show.
Okay, do we have any comments, questions?
I'll say that we need to follow this East Palo Alto Municipal Service Review very closely, and the conflict of interest is horrendous. I don't understand how Martha could have allowed that. And where in the LAFCO law and codes on municipal service reviews does it allow a developer to pick up the cost and the decision making for this?
I mean, an agency to pick up the cost?
I would have thought if it was actually in writing in law that it's illegal, it would have been stopped. So apparently this is a loophole. I'd been probably with LAFCO, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, seen a whole bunch of MSRs, and this was the first time this has ever happened that I have seen. So it's always been either a LAFCO consultant or LAFCO people themselves doing the MSRs. So
well, are the LAFCO people doing the MSR?
Not in this case. This is an outside consultant. LAFCO selected the consultant they put out the RFP, they analyzed the recipients, and they said this one would be appropriate and legal and intelligent and capable. So it was voted to, yes, we will let that move forward. But I was encouraged that this time, most of the commissioners had 4 or 5 questions that they wanted added to the thing. And a lot of them mentioned, well, I've talked to my other special districts and I don't understand why they're being forced to pay for this, and lots of stuff. So I think from the last meeting to this meeting, there's been kind of a lot more action from the actual commissioners being more concerned about this than they were the first time it came around. So.
Rick, when I get back, I don't even have to be back. We can just do this. Let's give CSDA a call and talk to CSDA in Sacramento about this. I'm coming home tomorrow anyway.
Is that a threat?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Sounds good.
Let's move on to attorney's report. Anything, Christine?
No, President Boyd,
okay.
Thank you.
Any director's reports?
Yes, I may have made a mistake, and instead of being SB 6, it may be SB 9. I will do further research. I sent a bunch of people a report on Senate Bill 6 from 2019, and it's worth paying attention to as well. essentially the history is the California legislature is doing everything it can to undo zoning, ignore traffic, and ignore water supply, and just cram, quote, affordable housing through.
So Catherine, it's SB 9 and 10, and I wrote an article on it today, and I sent you the link.
Thank you.
Okay, any other directors' reports? Okay, general manager's report.
Yeah, two things. First, I wanted to inform the board that we had to authorize an emergency repair to the Portola 3 well. We have a hole in the riser pipe. We got to pull the pipe and insert new pipe. So I mentioned this because this was a $50,000 item that we want fixed as soon as possible. So Rick, heads up, we're going to be in your front yard.
It's not my fault. You can't blame me for that.
Okay.
I said hi to everybody at the bottom of the hill, but it was.
Okay. We'll double check what.
I hit it with my lawnmower twice, so I don't know why that caused a problem.
All right, and then I wanted to inform the board, just in general, that we're actually reviewing a project at this time that was referred to us from San Mateo County, that is in the Bayview region of Grant Road. So this project was here. The owner is Mr. Brasher. This project was in front of the board over a decade ago in a somewhat different form. I believe we can handle this administratively, but I wanted to just let the board know this was a bigger deal for the district at the time.
He contacted all information you gave me before. He's back kind of a friendly conversation and wants to talk to me with the realtor. I will contact him tomorrow to say there's nothing. I have no input into this issue, but I will collect whatever his latest comments or issues are, and I'll pass them on to you.
Thank you.
I don't know if he's just being conversational at this point, because he seems friendly at this point, so I'm just not sure. I think he's got the realtor involved because he wants to sell the lots, obviously. But I really don't know what other information we can give him, so I'll find out and I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay, please do.
Okay, Clemens, anything further?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, we are going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we're going to reconvene in closed session for a few items. We have a conference with legal counsel for the existing litigation where Half Moon Bay sued Granada and Montara. We have significant exposure to litigation, anticipated litigation, one potential case, and then initiation of litigation pursuant to paragraph 4 of subdivision D of Government Code 54956.9 D4, one potential case. And then a conference with property negotiators regarding 771 Rivera Road here in Montara. With that, we thank them. Christine, did you have anything? I think you wanted to say something.
Just if I could just quickly make the same statement that I made at the last meeting, that Director Lohman will be recusing himself from the real property negotiation item, which means he will leave the virtual meeting and not participate either by audio or video. And that's due to a conflict of interest under Government Code 87100. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and watching and participating in a part of what makes this community tick. I really appreciate you being here. I look forward to seeing you next time. And with that, we are in recess for, let's call it 5 minutes. Let's come back at 10 after the hour.